invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?
To another podcast on Bound for Glory. My name is Ethan and we are here with Matt.
Yes, Matt and newbie first-timer Paige over here.
Hello. What is happening?
Fantastic. Very exciting to have you on board. I sound so sincere right now. It's the pre-season, or off-season really.
Silly season.
Damn bored at the moment, and today officially the trade period has come to a close also, which means that we are going to have a pretty boring few months coming ahead of us until we get into the pre-season.
Except on Bound for Glory News.
Except on BoundForGloryNews.com, of course, because it's the most fantastic production ever. There's been a lot of movement over the last 3 weeks. I read an article or something.
1997.
Yeah, well, that's the article I read, and I think, well, obviously there's 2 more bloody weeks to do things. Of course, there's going to be more.
In terms of trades, it was the most since 1997, I think.
With a total of 33, it was.
33
in 97.
It's a ridiculous amount of trades and a ridiculous few trades, really, that
we'll get
you
to
just
that
can't
later.
baffle.
I think we're going to discuss the trades and free agents as well. I think we'll do the free agents.
We've
first.
also got interviews with 3 upcoming draftees
John
as well. John O'Rourke,
Nick Vlastuin and Spencer White.
That's it. Fantastic. We're going to rip into the free agents first because that's what happened first. And
run through these in order.
That's how we go through in order.
So Chris Knights was the first one. What did you guys make of that?
I think it was on the cards the whole time as well, so no one was really shocked when it came around. I think it's a really good pickup for Richmond, really. They've done fantastic in this pre-season. I'll touch more on it later, but they've done a really good job to get another senior player into that midfield after what they did with Marich last year and Grigg a couple of years back. It
almost dispels that the myth of their poor recruiting over the last couple of years. They've really done well over...
Oh, they still... Terry Wallace is still a knob, but...
we won't go into that.
Yeah, we will.
But,
no, we enjoy making fun of them.
So, yeah, I think it was a good pick. What do you reckon, Ethan?
Well, he has stagnated, I guess we can say, over the last couple of years. He hasn't been getting a consistent game. Hasn't really been performing.
It's hard to crack
standard
Adelaide's midfield, though.
I wouldn't say that. I think a player of the quality that Chris Knights has shown, not currently is, but I think he can crack. He could have cracked Adelaide's side.
Well, he did have a very impressive 2009 season before he went down with that hamstring, so it's probably hampered his ability to break back into that side for the last 18 to 24 months. So,
well, there were whispers end of last year as well. That,
hi, Damon. Jackman,
hey,
how are you?
Yeah, it's just producing here, just sitting in the corner, just scratching my beard that doesn't exist.
Metaphoric beard.
Last year, end of last year, that he was going to move along, and he signed, what was it, 1-year contract. So it's no surprise he's actually moved on now through lack of opportunities.
We were talking, I think there was talks a month or so before it started that he was going to be heading out, even when the season was still going, that he was on the way out. So it's no surprise. It's a good pickup by Richmond, I think.
Yeah, hopefully he can reinvigorate his career. But the big move came on the same day. Brendan Goddard to Essendon. It was bound to happen. It was rumoured for a while that Brendan Goddard was
even though he said, even when he said he was staying at St Kilda, you sort of thought that he would be moving out. But I'm really surprised that Essendon were the club to target him as much as they did. I mean, they need inside midfielders. Goddard hasn't been an inside midfielder for a long time.
He hasn't ever.
Well, he played a lot of the inside rough, tough stuff when they lost that premiership in 2010.
Well, he played everywhere that year.
But he spent a lot. He spent some time in the midfield. That's what I'm saying. He hasn't spent any time as an in and under midfielder. He spent his time roaming around the flanks, butchering the ball for the last couple of years. So, I mean, Essendon, as far as clubs go, they have the best flankers in the competition by far.
Goddard and Heppel on each back flank. My God.
But I don't understand why they'd get a player like. I mean, they needed somebody who's an in and under player, and they spent a fair bit on getting Goddard. I just don't get it.
Well, probably around the 800k mark, wasn't it? It's over the sill.
Yeah.
I think,
Oh,
we can,
God,
I
yeah.
think the
comfortably say.
biggest beneficiary from this is probably going to be probably
Pocket.
Well, his pocket's going to benefit greatly from this move, but I think it's going to be Brent Stanton, who Essendon probably didn't get to release as much as they would have liked to in the second half of the year. And
He's very good first half.
Oh, he had an exceptional first 2 months of the year, but Goddard coming in probably releases Stanton a little bit more to play that main outside role that he was really damaging in.
That's a good point, because he did get tagged a fair bit once he really did hit some form, and I think without that defensive pressure as much applied to him, he can really thrive under that. So that's a good point. But St Kilda got pick 13 from that as a compensation.
Yeah,
which
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
really.
that's spot on, I think.
Yeah, I think we can agree with that. Next move was Quinton Lynch to the Magpies.
I really like this move from Collingwood because they showed that when Travis Cloke's down that they haven't got anybody else.
Especially
when he was there.
Which we'll go through later.
We will go through that later. But it means, Quinton Lynch has never been a standout forward, but he's never been a rubbish forward. He's always been a guy who you can expect to kick 1, 2 or 3 goals a game, because he always does, and if he doesn't, then he'll do another role. He's a real team player in that sense, and he always does what he's told to do, and I think that's really going to help Travis Cloke unleash himself, because if Cloke's not up and about, Quinton Lynch will kick goals, and if Quinton Lynch kicks goals, then opposition coaches are going to focus on tagging him and shutting him out of the game, and then that leaves space for Cloke to run into.
I think he's sort of that, in comparison to Dawes, he was playing more of the roaming forward. I think Quinton Lynch is sort of that better mould of a player to do that sort of role. So I reckon he'll be really beneficial to the Pies.
Well, he's gonna demand a pretty big matchup, given he is such a big-bodied forward. As you said, Cloke will definitely benefit from another chop out up forward.
And a better ruck as well.
Yes.
Well, look, he will pinch it in the ruck as well when the ball's down there in the forward line. I wouldn't expect too much of it, because he wasn't recruited in the first place to do that. But, if he pockets 40-odd goals this year, it's going to be a big return for Collingwood.
Yep, definitely. Next one was Daniel Pearce to Fremantle.
I was sort of surprised.
Interesting, this one.
Interesting move. Didn't see it really coming.
Fremantle are well known for getting ordinary players and making them even more ordinary. So it really
mostly from Essendon usually.
Yeah, usually from Essendon. So I guess they're picking the bottom of the barrel at Port Adelaide, which is saying a fair bit.
Pairs as well.
Almost got pairs from Essendon as well.
Well, they did address that lack of pace they have throughout their midfield, which saw probably Hill get tagged out of games quite a lot. I mean, Morabito still hasn't come back from several injuries. So when he returns and Pearce getting back into that midfield, adding pace, and obviously, that gives Hill a greater advantage as well.
As you sort of alluded to, I think it's not about how his output will be next year. I think it'll be how the output of the other guys will be with him in the side, because, as you said, he's got that pace, he's explosive, and he'll be able to sort of take a bit of attention away from the other guys and let them do what they do. And Fremantle missed Nat Fyfe for most of the year, so having a midfielder to come in and sort of help him is going to surprise teams somewhat, because they didn't have a dominant midfield this year, but now all of a sudden they've got Nat Fyfe back, they'll have another midfielder there. It's sort of
Mickey Barlow's going to definitely benefit from another pre-season on his belt after that leg injury, but
yeah, it definitely helps the pace in the side. Next one was Troy Chaplin joining Richmond.
Yeah,
another interesting
question marks. I don't.
Yeah, it is a questionable move, especially given Port Adelaide were pretty adamant that extra year that they were offering, given his knees weren't 100%, it does raise a bit of a question mark, but Richmond really needed that extra backman to release Rance up the field a little bit more. He did have some pretty good scalps this year, but I think with Chaplin coming in, that really adds another dimension to Richmond's backline.
It makes them pretty tall down back as well, I think. That's the main issue I have with it personally. They've now got Rance, Grimes, Chaplin, Batchelor, and probably Griffiths as well.
I think in another sense, they're really taking advantage of the whole idea of the compensation, not the compensation, but the free agency period, in that you get players that they're not going to be superstars usually. I mean, Goddard's an exception. He has a potential to be a superstar. But you don't necessarily get superstars, but you get handy players, and I think Chaplin is a handy player when he's up and about.
And they filled that role beautifully, though.
And it's low risk as well for no expense. I mean, they're not trading any picks or anything.
That's it, yeah.
So, yeah, in that respect, it's worth the risk.
And I think the same can be said of Shannon Burns. It was the next one. He's probably going to fill a role up forward for Melbourne.
Yeah, look, I think Shannon Burns is unlucky not to be getting games at Geelong this year.
Behind Christensen, Varco, and Menzel and all those medium, small forward types. It's pretty hard to crack a game.
It was obvious that
down there.
that Geelong had a relative youth policy in a way, and they were keeping on with those guys, even though Burns was in the best for the VFL, every week, if not every week, every second week. So I think it's a really good pickup from Melbourne. Another situation where a club is just taking advantage of what they've got ahead of them as far as the free agency goes. So I think it's a good one.
Next one again was Tom Murphy to the Suns.
Yeah.
Don't
Bit
think
of a tough story for him, isn't it?
Yeah, dropped for a grand final. There isn't much we can say about that, but it looks like he will get a game to fill what is a fairly depleted backline, I think we could
He will add that experience, that matured body to still what is a very young side in the Suns.
Yeah, so he's going to be performing more of a leadership role, you'd think, rather than actual talent to the side. No indictment on him, of course, but
not at all. He's the talentless player.
Next one was Brett Maloney to Brisbane, and I thought that was
I don't mind that trade whatsoever.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Obviously, adding to the experience of the younger midfielders, Rich, Redden, Rockcliffe. They're not old. Simon Black is very close to on the way out. He's doing well, but the end is coming very closely.
It's a smart move though, because Black, he'll go around another year. I think he's already said he's going around another year. I'm pretty sure. I'm just going on. But yeah, if he'll go around another year, and that'll most likely be it. I mean, you can pretty safely say that. And they brought in Maloney, who has a few years left. And it's a really good move because when Black goes out, they didn't have anybody else there that was a senior midfielder.
It fills a void of experience between the 25 to 30-year-old.
Well, he did win Melbourne's best and fairest in 2011, so he had a very good year. He probably didn't really catch on to the Mark Neal game plan this season, and he ended up in Casey for quite a bit, but I think he'll add a really good hardness in the middle for Brisbane.
And when Maloney and Black are both gone, they'll have these young guys they're already impressive, but they'll be experienced.
Another one as well.
That's it. Yep. And I think they're really smart, Brisbane, in that they've got this system where they've got these old guys that are going to teach the young guys, and by the time the old guys are gone, the young guys will be the teachers. So yeah, it's a very good effort, I reckon.
Another demon to leave, Jared Rivers down to the Cattery.
Ouch.
Yeah, that hurts. I think he was, as far as Melbourne season, we can obviously say it wasn't a very good one, but Rivers was very good this year, either as a fullback or as a forward, as a makeshift forward. Really, Geelong have just got an absolute steal, I think, as far as this goes.
They haven't really been known to really go out and recruit mature age players in recent years, which is probably what makes it all the more surprising. But
he's 28 years old.
Yep. Well, he's not past it, obviously. Yeah. He's still got a couple.
He's still got a lot to offer, and he'll probably help that role made vacant by Scarlett, whilst another defender probably grows into that position in the future.
I think it's a real stamp to say that Geelong, they still want to win another premiership. And it's
not
beyond them.
To do it.
They've got plenty of kids. I mean, these kids played in a premiership last year, so when 2013 rolls in, they'll be very experienced sort of players. So
I think it sets up a fantastic back line of Lonergan locking down the best forward and Rivers and Taylor playing more creative floating roles as well.
And obviously with Scarlett going out, it really helps to have that other guy come in as well.
And it's a big loss for the D's, especially because they're lacking, I think, in really good senior players, and to lose Jared Rivers it's a big loss.
And then the next one was Clinton Young, who was rumoured around North Melbourne, Brisbane, and eventually then went to Collingwood. What do you make of that? I think it fills the role of Wellingham as well.
Yeah, it does beautifully. I think he'll play a great role. He's probably one of those players that is a transition player over that 60 to 90 metres. Collingwood haven't had a really long left-footed kicker coming out of those wings for quite a while, and he'll play a role straight off the bat for Collingwood.
It's a good get, definitely.
And it was quite interesting to watch Hawthorn kick up a fuss over the compensation as well.
Yeah.
They received. It was pick 62 or 66, wasn't it?
66.
Yeah. Thank you, Paige.
Both Murphy and Young, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if the AFL, they won't do anything about it.
Of course they won't.
Well, it's unders for a player.
Oh,
like
it is, definitely.
They've got the right to feel ripped off. I mean, he was in their best 22 for quite a while, but definitely unlucky to get that sort of compensation, or lack of.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think someone like Quinton Lynch, who is 30 years old, has probably only got 2 years left in him, to get a pick higher than them. Daniel Pearce as well plays a very similar role. To get pick 30 it's not really right, I don't think.
No, I
don't think Pearce is any better than Clinton Young at all, actually.
And even Troy Chaplin as well, who, as we said, he's sort of questionable with his knee injuries. They received pick 31. Bit suspect, I think.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see the way that the AFL formulates all these decisions. I think they do need to make the decision making a bit more open to see what.
How is it determined what a player's worth?
I do think they have a set formula, and if it doesn't look right, the AFL commission or something will step in and overrule it, say, no, this player is worth this much to us.
I mean, it is tough given he was just about best on ground in the 2008 grand final before he hurt his ankle, and they've got an absolute every right to be very disappointed in that.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that. But I think we'll go to the Jonathan O'Rourke interview now. He's a very impressive young prospect in that AFL draft this year. Looks to go top 10. Ball-winning midfielder from Vic Metro. So here's the interview.
What are your goals as an AFL player next year?
Next year, it's pretty much just to get in there and to get used to the whole training situation and that, and hopefully play a few games, but not expecting too much really. So just to try and fit in and just work hard.
Who's your biggest inspiration as an AFL player?
My biggest inspiration? It's probably just, I don't know, probably just family and friends and that. Like, I've just always wanted to play AFL, so I guess just getting the opportunity, hopefully I'll just try and take it on board and give it my best shot.
So you've always wanted to play AFL. When did you realise that you genuinely could?
I was as a kid and that, but wanted to play AFL. But probably once I've got to the upper 16s level and started playing some pretty good footy there, I started to realise like it's a bit more realistic. So yeah, once I hit around 16, I started to think this is possible and gave it my best shots from there.
And what AFL team do you support?
Back for Richmond.
So you're hoping you might get drafted for them?
I'd love to go to the Tigers, but I'm happy to go anywhere really.
One of your standout traits that you've had during the national champs and the TAC Cup was your high disposal efficiency, which is really impressive for a player who wins a lot of contested footy. Do you believe this is one of your best skills?
Usually I try to use that as one of my strengths is my efficiency. So definitely I try to make sure I'm doing something with the footy. So it's probably one of my better skills I've got.
There's a big demand for ball-winning midfielders like yourself in the AFL. Who would you liken yourself to most?
I'm not too sure. It's a tough question. Like, I don't know who I liken myself to as a footy player, but like I try to model my game on midfielders such as like Scott Pendlebury and Trent Cotcher and just those type of players that can do a bit of inside and outside footy. So try to watch them as much as I can.
And there was an incident last year, I believe, during the AIS AFL Academy trip to London where you tore your hamstring and you missed 3 odd months of footy and even missed the national championships. Can you talk us through that whole situation and sort of how it affected your preparation for 2012, both mentally and physically?
I did my hamstring overseas, so after that I kind of missed, as you said, about 3 months of footy, and it's pretty much just a mental thing and getting back and having confidence in my body. So I missed out on nationals last year, and then pretty much the whole year at Calder. So just thought to myself that this year was more important, so kind of forgot about it and just worked hard on pre-season and tried to strengthen up my legs and get right for this year, which was probably a more important year.
So you'd say you're fully confident in your hamstring by now?
Yeah, definitely. So I've done a lot of work with it and strengthened it up and that, so now I'm 100% confident in it, and hopefully, touch wood, don't do it again.
There's a big chance you'll be selected top 10 when the national draft comes around. A lot of experts have got you in the top 10. Have you spent much time thinking about the draft and where you might end up, whether it be Victoria or elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely. Like, since the draft came and that, you've had this time to just wait until you get drafted and you start to think about it a lot more. So, definitely I'm hoping to get picked up by a Victorian team. So, but it's pretty much 50-50, and Edison, I'm happy with Edison, really.
So if there were a chance that you'd be picked up by a team like Brisbane or Greater Western Sydney, would that faze you at all moving into state?
It'd definitely be hard, and I wouldn't know really what to expect, but I guess if that's the only opportunity you got, you have to take it. But it'll definitely be something that you'll have to try and work at it and make it work, because it'd be pretty tough, I'd say.
We are back on Bound for Glory. Now, we got a few trades to run through. It was
Fair few trades.
it
Record
was-
amount, as you said, since 1997 or whatever.
most for 15 years or so. So, plenty of them. The first one was for Jack Martin, the mini draft pick from Jerry and Gold Coast. Pick 2 is what Gold Coast gave up. And I thought it's fairly big price to cough
I
up.
think Gold Coast has sort of found themselves in a situation where they've gone for heaps of kids, and then they've gone this year. They've sort of gone, okay, now we need to get some senior players, and this is sort of them saying, okay, we need to get another kid in as well because they need to sort of find a balance, and they're preparing for the future. And otherwise, they're just going to have a bunch of guys that are 31 and gone, and 25-year-olds that are great, and then not much else really. So
Well, they did a similar thing last year, didn't they, with Jaeger Mura?
Yep.
He was going to make his debut this.
They gave pick 4.
Yeah. So I reckon they've done well in that respect. Yeah.
Well, Martin's from what he's played over in WA, he's proven to be a very, very crafty footballer. He's very elusive as well. So when he does come in, that midfield will be exceptionally good in a couple of years'
it's
time.
a big gamble, though. I mean, because we've seen a lot of players in the year before they come in, they've done a few big injuries. I mean, he could do, and touch wood, he could do his knee before he's able to play AFL. So it's a massive gamble in that respect, because you could be giving away your second pick for a cripple, basically.
The next one then was Angus Monfries for pick 48 from Port Adelaide. And I thought win-win in that trade.
Yeah, definitely. In a way, I think Essendon needed to get rid of him because he doesn't sort of fit the way that they play, I personally believe. And Port Adelaide, obviously, they need to get experienced footballers into the club because so many are walking out. They need to get somebody to come into the club. So they've done well to get Monfries. He's not a superstar in any facet of the word, but he's a serviceable player.
Yeah, he'll play a role.
Yeah, despite his antics, we'll say that.
But he probably should fill a midfield half-forward role that...
Well, if he can't get a
open.
spot in Port's midfield, then he's, send him back to the Caulfield Magoos.
But it win-win, that one. Port Adelaide get a man that they were targeting, a free agent as well, without harming their compensation too, which was quite important. Next one was for Tom Lee, former Adelaide listed player, who got cut after a year, I think, and dominated for Claremont in the waffle this year, kicked 60-odd goals, and they coughed up pick 12 for him and got Tom Lee pick 24 and pick 43 back. I thought it's a high price to pay for
They
him, but
might be regretting that now that Tippett won't be there next year. They need a few pick bodies.
Yeah.
It's
I
interesting because
personally
I probably would have seen Tom Lee go in the draft probably in that second to third round.
yeah, I would have found him back
I
there.
think they've paid quite a high price, but they have addressed that life after Kaczynski and Rewalt era, which obviously needed to be tended to more sooner than not. But he'll come in and definitely play a very good, I guess, role for them early on.
Off the top of my head, Kaczynski's just been given a 1-year contract.
I'm surprised they gave him that.
Surprised. He was lucky to get a 1-year contract, so it's a good get for them considering it's if he doesn't pull his finger out next finally after I think he's 28 or something like that now, 29 or something
He's
around
30,
there.
isn't he?
Oh,
I think
well,
he's going on, 30.
Jeez, well in that case he's rubbish.
Well,
No,
it doesn't matter how old he is, Matt.
dear God. Moving on.
Next one was a surprise, to be honest. Brian Lake
Yeah,
to Hawthorn from the
after
Bulldogs.
after all that happened, really, I mean, Lake had that a couple of years ago, that season where nothing would go right. He was injured, he was out of form, and the Dogs weren't picking him. So in that sense, it's not so much a surprise, but it's a surprise that he had a season in between where he had a really good year this year. And he was fantastic in a side that would get flogged by 40, 50, 60 points regularly, and yet he'd still be in the bests as a defender. Hawthorn have definitely got a massive coup here by getting him. They have noted issues in defence with Ryan Schoenmakers, who struggles with key forward players. Brian Lake's proven that he can take the best in the competition, which takes a lot of pressure off Schoenmakers, which in turn takes a lot of pressure off the other guys, the smaller guys as well.
I think what Hawthorn have done there as well is that they've traded off a bit of their future in their early draft picks, but what they've assessed now is the fact that the premiership window is open.
Yep.
They struggle down back sometimes, especially with Gibson rolling off and Schoenmakers, like you said, struggling to really hold down a key back position. And that's what Lake will do.
And it was essentially for a second round pick upgrade from 27 to 21 and a second round pick. So I think the Dogs did well out of that as well to get an extra pick in. Next one was Melbourne getting Jesse Hogan through the mini draft as well, coughing up picks 3 and 13, receiving 20 back. And Dom Barry from the Northern Territory, a GWS zone player. And I thought it was a high price to pay. I thought Melbourne could have offered up pick 4 instead, or pick 4 and 13, something along those lines. But they did well to get a very, very promising kid forward.
Yeah, well, they got proven young kids, and that's what they need, really. I mean, the drafting hasn't gone perfect for Melbourne over the last few years, especially with Scully leaving, and Trengo's good, but he's sort of stagnated a little bit this year, and he's only young. You obviously can't judge him on that. But they need to keep on getting good young kids, and that's what they've done. They've noted that that's what they need to do, and they have. All credit to them.
Well, they've filled 2 areas in which they needed to be filled, an outside run through Barry and a key forward spot which was open through Hogan. So I think it was win-win, that one. GWS got a couple of good picks in as well, so now they got the first 3. Next one was Sharrod Welling for pick 17. Collingwood huge winners out of that one.
Yeah,
Massive
God, yeah.
winners.
God, yeah.
Yep.
Wellingham is nowhere near a 17.
Look, he's
No facet of it.
Yeah, he's never been one of in Collingwood's probably. You know, when you look at their midfield at the moment, he probably comes in as their 7th, 8th stringer in their midfield, and what he'll do at West Coast, he'll add that cream on the top. He won't be a huge ball winner, and as an outside player, you know, he'll move that ball quite well because he is a very good kick of the ball and is a good finisher in front of goal, but. Collingwood, as you said, definitely for pick 17, you know, they forced it, and West Coast were quite reluctant to part ways with their first round pick, but, you know, Collingwood did really well out of that trade, and they go into the draft with another first round selection.
And Clinton Young on top of that to replace Wellingham.
Well, that's it. They've done really well in that aspect.
Next one was Melbourne on trading their pick 20 for Chris Dawes, as well as downgrading their 3rd round pick.
Well, no, I love this pick, this trade, to be honest, because I personally rate Dawes. No one else seems to rate Dawes. I mean, you got to remember, he's 23 years old. He had a fantastic season a couple of years ago. He hasn't really got any better. He had that horrible year this year,
His
especially
his grand final was fantastic.
His grand final was one of the best from a young key forward. He was fantastic.
He was a major part of that 2010 flag for Collingwood, but you know, by Collingwood's own admission, they said that they probably played him very much out of position this year with that forward come ruck role, and you just saw that every time that when he did move down to the forward line after that, you know, stint in the mid rucking, he was just too tired. The fatigue got the better of him, and you know, as a result, his shots on goal was sprayed. He was dropping marks. His confidence was shot. But now that Melbourne have promised to play him as that key lead up forward, he'll flourish.
Off the top of my head, I believe Melbourne averaged something like low 70s of points for per game this year,
that.
And that is obviously boosted by these huge wins that they had against weaker opposition. This year, or next year actually, they're going to have a fantastic forward line, especially considering Burns has been brought in as well, who sneaks forward and does work. I mean, they were missing their key forward, the best key forward, one of the best young key forwards in the competition. Not super young, but he's still young.
They also missed Mitch Brown. Sorry, Mitch Clark there at the end of the year there. But
excellent. So they're missing Clark for the second half of the year. They're gonna have Clark come back in. They're gonna have Dawes come in. They've got Hogan, who's there
for 2014.
Yes, that's it. Oh, he's I mean, he'll be coming in.
He will be there.
Burns is gonna be there. I don't think obviously Rivers left. I think they're still going to
retirement of Green. I think they needed someone, a big body down there as well. So that's
definitely
they've addressed a need there as well.
Next one was Hamish McIntosh from North Melbourne down to Geelong for pick 36, and I thought that's
a steal.
Yeah, big get for Geelong, especially considering they're desperate for a big ruckman. I don't think the Oren Stevenson thing worked out at all.
No, it didn't.
And Stevenson was a fantastic ruckman for the Roosters in the VFL, but AFL level, he just couldn't get it right.
The speed is probably what got to him.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a big old guy, so you can't really expect him to adapt. But McIntosh coming in, he was hampered by injuries all year. He's not a fantastic ruckman. I think he was very good in yesteryear.
All-Australian squad.
Yeah, but he's not a fantastic.
He's a dual All-Australian, but I mean, he did suffer again another knee injury in the middle of the year and was then ruled out for the rest of the 2012 season. But if you go by his form early on in the season, he was rucking fantastically. He even kept, Goldstein out of the side at stages, and when he was in, he was really dominating.
Who's the young Geelong ruckman?
Trent West.
Trent West, that's the one. West and
Nathan Vardy's there as well.
Yeah,
Dawson
Vardy's there as well.
Simpson.
I think they've
Dawson
really set
Simpson.
themselves up as well. And Jimmy Bartell mentioned that he had I think it was an injured foot all throughout the year, and he was playing with that injury all year. So, Bartell will heal up over the off season. Then you've got you got Selwood in there in that midfield. You got all those young kids that they've spent years developing. They're going to have a really good midfield again. I think, in all honesty, considering all the trades that they got, Geelong could be a force next year.
Well, Geelong have never really ever bottomed out. I mean,
no,
the last time they won a wooden spoon was in 1958.
They have.
So they drop off, but their drop off is only for a couple of years, and then they're back in the top 8 again. And you look at their VFL side this year. Look at the George Holland-Smith was fantastic in the season for Geelong. And
they're having
he'll
trouble
come
with
in.
their rookie list upgrading players.
It's a great headache to have.
Yeah.
I think they've sort of reversed what they did with a couple of years ago when they lost that. I think it was a prelim to Collingwood, and they got belted. And after that they just got a whole bunch of kids, and they started playing the kids, and the kids helped them win the premiership the next year. It's just sort of reverse what they've done. They've got the experienced guys that they need, and they have this really nice balance in the lineup at the moment.
And then they topped it off with Josh Caddy as well for picks 15 and 55, I think it was, something like that. It was their first round compensation pick, their other one for Gary Ablett, and their third rounder. So I think it's high price to pay for Caddy, but I think
his best is still ahead of him. I mean, the glass is half full for him at the moment. So, despite what's been spoken of that there may be a bit of an attitude problem, I think he's going to be a great asset to Geelong moving forward. And I mean, he'll shadow Selwood for the next 12 to 24 months, and he'll be sensational for Geelong in the long run.
And then there was Angus Graham for a pick upgrade for Richmond.
There's
but
not much
Interesting.
to say about that.
I don't know what to say
think
about
it was
that.
But for now, we've got an interview with another draft prospect, Nick Vlastuin, very good young player from the Northern Knights, and his interview now.
What are your goals as an AFL player next year?
Well, hopefully just get to a club first off, and I'm lucky enough to do that during the pre-season. Work on my fitness and maybe even push for a senior spot on the playing team. So.
All right. So, what player do you model your game off?
I like to look at a bit Luke Ball and Brad Sewell, just the in and under competitive players. Yeah.
So you consider yourself an inside midfielder type?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, who is your biggest inspiration as a player?
I'm not too sure actually. Probably Brett Kirk actually. Going through the 2 years with AIF, like he was my mentor the first year, and all of his stories, how he got delisted pretty much twice, and then he still came back to be a club captain, one of the better players in Swan's team. So, just listening to him and how he just worked, like how hard he had, and he didn't take no for an answer.
All right. So you would have found that as an inside midfielder himself, it would have found good inspiration off him to work on your game as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I forget which coach he had, but one coach said like he's never going to play, and like Paul Roos came along, but Paul Roos liked him, so then he gave him like another chance, and then he improved on that, and like the game had going. So yeah,
That's pretty handy. So, what AFL team do you support as well?
I'm Collingwood man.
So, do you reckon you might get drafted by them at some point?
Yeah, you don't know till the day, I suppose. I wouldn't mind it. They're a good club. So.
Holding hope.
It's obviously not a given, but most experts have got you going in the first round of the draft. Have you prepared yourself mentally for football, especially at AFL level?
Well, it's pretty hard because you don't really know what to expect. But being part of the AFL, we're lucky enough to spend a week in the AFL club. So that's pretty much given us a little bit of an insight. But then still, like all the mentors we've had over the years, they say the hard work starts once you actually get to the club. So getting drafted is the easiest thing. So, yeah, we're still not sure really what to expect doing a full pre-season. Like, 1 week of it's good, but then can you show up, week after week, still giving 100%. So, yeah, I'm trying to, but you just don't know what to expect.
Look, unlike most potential draftees in this year's draft, you haven't had VCE to worry about given that you finished that last year. Do you think that's given you a step above everyone else in the draft this year?
Yeah, definitely, I suppose. I haven't had to worry about like studying for sacks and stuff during nationals. When some of I knew the Carey boys, they had like sacks a couple of days after the nationals game when we were travelling. So it's been pretty easy. I've been able to focus on footy a bit more. But then also with I haven't been able to train that much more just because you don't want to overtrain. So it's helped me with the recovery side of things, I suppose, and just the stress as well. I don't really have to worry too much.
So you say you're better prepared for AFL than most draftees next year, would you say, based on that?
Yeah, that's going along with the majority of things. It's not just not having school this year. So.
You've had the nickname Tigger that's stuck with you throughout the years. Can you tell us where that came from, Nick?
That actually came from my mother. When I was a little kid, I used to just bounce around. I used to hurt myself and then get straight back up. And with the red hair, she kind of thought it suited. So she told me that since I was started to walk. And then one of my footy mates came over, maybe about grade 5, and then they got to the footy club after that, and then just never got rid of it.
Back on Band for Glory. Now, go through the rest of the trades. We got Tom Hickey was the latest one from Gold Coast to St Kilda. They coughed up their Brennan Guido compensation for that, as well as a swap of second and third round picks between the two clubs. What do you guys make of that? Because it's a high price to pay for Tom Hickey. He hasn't really...
I don't even know who Tom Hickey is.
Did he get much of an opportunity at all?
He did, and he looked pretty good.
He did have a great game against Collingwood early in the year when
24 hitouts and
he did. I mean,
contested
that being
marks
said, Cameron Wood was rucking. So, but look, on that note alone, look, he took some very good marks. I think he had 11 marks for that game, and he had something like 13 kicks. So he is athletic, and given the new ruck rule that's come in, that's going to restrict big-bodied ruckmen from obviously grappling and engaging before the ball's thrown up. He's one who'll flourish in this new era of ruckman, and given St Kilda spoke that they needed some help for Ben McAvoy, and they've done this beautifully, getting Hickey, and they have paid a high price. And if he was a draft pick, I think in this year's draft, you'd probably be looking at anywhere between a 18 to about a 30 pick at the moment on him.
And he's still raw as well. Like as that sort of the combination is that with tall forwards or defenders or whatnot, key position players, they usually take a little bit longer to come on. So it might be just a future investment for the Saints, and it might come off.
And two very good ruckmen, two very good around-the-ground ruckmen as well in McAvoy and Hickey now. So it's very good to have. Jack Homsch as well from GWS to Port Adelaide, as well as Jake Need, who I think was a Northern Territory zone player as well, for pick 29, which was... It was their one of 3 picks they had in a row as well, as they had the 2 compensation picks for Pearce and Chaplin. So no problem getting rid of one of them. Jack Homsch gets to return to South Australia, fill a key defender role down there with Chaplin going. Win-win, I think.
I think he just covered everything there. Really, there's not a whole lot to say more about that.
Then there was Kobe.
Good job, Ethan.
Appreciate it. Kobe Stevens then for pick 44 to the Bulldogs, which was his team of choice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
44 is, I think it's about right, roughly, for Stevens. I mean, he hasn't necessarily proven himself, but he's got a lot of potential. Another one of those future investment things, I think. And so for 44, I think that's a pretty good trade.
I think it's interesting because, the Bulldogs have got quite a lot of inside midfielders, and they probably weren't looking to get another one, but Stevens elected the Doggies, and that's great for them. But he had a very good junior career with the AIS. Was voted one of the best players in that team as well. So they do get a good, now mature age player who's come in at 21 years old, and he'll be good for the Doggies going forward as well.
And performed very well in the Waffle as well. And Nat, you wrote this one as the steal of the draft. Greg Broughton and pick 60 for pick 37.
That's incredible.
That is they've crazy stuff.
It's almost daylight robbery, isn't it?
It's crazy stuff. Fremantle. You got to say, obviously that Gold Coast have won this trade by a mile. Broughton had a poor season by his standards. He was down, I think, averaging 5 odd possessions on previous seasons. But also on the other hand, Fremantle took Broughton with their 6th rookie selection. So they've effectively upgraded a 6th rookie selection to a 3rd round pick?
A second round.
Second round pick. Yeah. So look, I think they've done well in that respect, but Gold Coast have I mean, that's daylight robbery.
And they get someone who can play inside.
He's a
well.
proven midfielder. That's what they need.
When he was playing as a midfielder earlier on in the year, he was averaging 30 possessions across 5 games as a midfielder. So he is a proven ball winner. So
and if they drop him down back as well, they've got that support that they really need. I mean, the Gold Coast defence isn't notably experienced, but Bock will be back. Broughton will be there if he plays down in defence. Campbell Brown will be out for 6 months because he's a knob. But I think that it's starting to come to shape. They won't make top 8, Gold Coast.
I think they'll improve.
But they'll be improved. They won't be.
They'll be more competitive, and they'll probably be looking to win at least 6 games this year with the acquisition of those players.
Yeah, there are a few trades in a row involving just the 2 picks. Pick 71 went from the Dogs to Collingwood for Tom Young, and then to Carlton for Jordan Russell. What do we make of them?
See, I don't mind Tom Young. I think when he has played in the senior team, he showed a lot of confidence and with that ability to roll off his player and crash a pack, and you can't really teach a young kid that. I think he didn't get much opportunity, obviously, in a very good Collingwood side.
Hard to crack that back line.
Yeah, very much. I mean, he was behind Tarrant, Keefe, Reid, Brown, for his entire career so far, and I think he'll step into the dog side where
Question: what the hell would Collingwood want with Russell?
Depth.
They had Wellingham. Wellingham is a better player than Russell is. Well, he doesn't play. That's the thing. You don't look at Collingwood's lineup and say Russell slots in here. I mean, he was playing Carlton reserves all year, even though Carlton had half a team due to injury.
I think it might be a chance for him to reinvent himself. He was probably on the outer at Carlton. He had a great season in 2010. He came runner-up in Carlton's best and fairest behind Judd. And
I think he's a fantastic. I love him as a player. I think he's a very genuine person as well. But that's a different topic.
I think Collingwood might be looking to address. Ben Johnson will retire at the end of 2013,
That's a good point. Yep.
And I think that area there. And Marty Clark came to this club last year, but he hasn't really come on like they expected. So I mean, getting Russell for effectively nothing. Adding a bit of depth there. I mean, Simon Buckley's rubbish. That's no lie.
Yeah.
But
you'll like Peter Williams, one of our other panel members. He hates.
Simon Buckley.
He absolutely bloody hates.
If
Buckley.
I could have a hate badge of Simon Buckley that I could take to the game every weekend and watch the Pies, I'd be very happy. So if anyone's willing to make me one of those,
Collingwood supporters.
Yes.
Love them. But just on Russell again. I mean, it was late 2011. That he started to have those injury problems and he couldn't get back in the Carlton senior side. And I was like, okay, next year you'll come back in. And he came in for, I think he played against the Bulldogs. And it was just this horrible game and he was struggling and he looked old and he looked, well, I think he's only 25, 26.
Yeah, he's 25. So
he's not old, but he looks, the way he plays, he just looks
almost
so
looks
tired
a bit
and slow.
Yeah.
And as though,
So what injury was it?
I believe that he originally did an ankle and then it was, this year was a
We saw that with
wrist.
Brock McLean. May have slowed him down.
Yeah.
Just
well, look,
dropped
and
the
Brock
yard.
McLean reinvented himself as well.
Exactly.
So I guess you can never really. It's not necessarily a gamble. It's just a why would you want him sort of situation.
It will be good for the depth. I mean, it's only going to take an injury to one of, say, Heath Shaw, Harry O'Brien, Johnson again. I mean, Johnson's passed at Collingwood, offer him a new deal because, well, he's been there since 1999. So, I mean, if Russell probably will step into the side throughout the year. I wouldn't think that he'd be in the best 22 at this stage, but he has that ability now to rejuvenate his career, probably reinvent himself under a new game plan and in a new environment. I mean, landscapes change and
he might have the pre-season of his life.
Exactly.
And
there you
start
go.
round one and have a fantastic season. You just never know with those ones. Moving on.
Pick 88. Going around a fair bit.
Pick 88 is the pick that nobody wants.
Yeah.
So
I hope that kid turns into a superstar.
That's what we need
I really do.
We need to keep our eye on Pick 88. We need to sponsor Pick 88.
Look, I'm gonna get that kid for an interview.
I don't care. I don't care what happens. I think we all need to
pass.
chuck in. I think $50, $100 or whatever, and sponsor whoever the bloody hell Pick 88 goes to.
It's been tossed around like the town hall. Pick
To
88.
put it lightly.
It really has.
No,
I mean,
nobody likes it. It's
3 clubs, 4 different times. Nobody
Melbourne had
wants,
it twice.
Nobody.
Melbourne got rid of it twice.
Melbourne got rid of it to begin
Follow.
with, and now have finished up with it. So that really says something.
Well, the
You're not
path
wanted, kid.
the path that's followed was
No kid.
it went to Port Adelaide for David Roden, then to West Coast for Lewis Stevenson, then back to Melbourne for Cale Morton.
Ride
So-
Sally Ride, I reckon. Jesus.
What?
Poor.
Alrighty.
But yeah, I
Love
reckon he's a decent pickup, Roden. I mean, he can play as a small forward, he can play in the middle, in and under, or outside player.
I think
So
his
he's got the
explosiveness there
versatility, he's
too.
very good.
And he adds a good attitude and experience to the Melbourne lineup. Lewis Stevenson, he's a South Australian boy, I'm pretty sure. Played 10 odd games in 2010. No more than depth, I think.
He was a standout for Claremont. He was very good in their last 2 premierships and was regarded as one of the best players in the waffle. So he'll come in straight away for Port Adelaide, I think.
You reckon best 22?
Without a
It's not
doubt.
saying
Yeah.
much.
Off the bat?
Doesn't
Yep,
say a whole
straight
lot,
away.
really.
Then I reckon Cale Morton to West Coast is a winner. to be fair.
And you want to question Jordan Russell coming to
Oh,
Collingwood.
that's the worst. Of all of them, I said off the top that there are a few questionable ones. This one's
Cale
not questionable.
Morton.
This one's
Wow.
just a statement. You're stupid. Why? I mean, Cale Morton, he obviously still has that potential, but he hasn't shown anything. I mean, he is a bona
Well,
fide...
not the last 3 years.
No, not really. He's a bona fide spaceman in that... It's a term that we throw around here at Bound for Glory. A spaceman is somebody who gets
You
a lot
reserve
of...
it for the Dyson Heppel
Yeah, for the
types
Dyson Heppel
and the
varieties.
Other Dyson Heppel types.
Just Dyson Heppel. And now Cale Morton. So Spaceman Cale, welcome to the team. I don't know why they need him. I mean, he hardly got a game at Melbourne, and Melbourne
I
won.
can't see how he's going to crack that line.
Ridiculous.
Well, with Swift and Stevens gone, there is not a regular spot, but there is a spot for him now.
Why?
There's a spot at Claremont.
Yeah, spot.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll
I don't
enjoy
think
that.
Claremont want him. Claremont Magoos can have him.
But just touching on that with Melbourne, they've had...
They got a steal.
They've now got Scully, who's left, Morton, who's gone,
Gisbert's as well. we can touch
Gisbert's
on
is
in a
out
sec.
the door, Lucas Cook's just about gone. I mean, those
No,
guys
you've been
have
saying that.
all
So
been...
you've been chiming
only
on
the-
about
it's
that
only the
Lucas
Lucas
Cook
Cook,
thing.
isn't
Look, it might not happen now, but
I
I still think he's gone.
He's gone,
It has
but
been
it might not
spoken.
happen.
Look, it's been spoken about a lot that he might be one to be
No
out the door.
credibility.
But
No
look,
credibility.
if those 4 guys go, they were all top first round draft picks. So Melbourne, in that aspect, really haven't.
Modern day
how do
Richmond.
I say this
And
without
now
being
Modern
Carl's
day
are
offensive?
stuck with Barry Prendergast.
Oh dear. Thanks.
And then there was also Campbell Heath for a pick upgrade from 85 to 72. Not much we can say
Okay.
about that.
All right.
Just
Congrats. Well done.
trying to bolster Port Adelaide's backline.
Dick Morell's coming out of retirement.
Oh, the
now.
dig. I like the dig. I have a bit of man love for the dig. The bald-headed freak.
Aaron Edwards for pick 74.
Don't mind
no,
it.
74 is a massive. I mean, Aaron Edwards rightfully should have been getting a game at North Melbourne. I mean, Hansen was really good. Robbie Tarrant came out of nowhere and all of a sudden started playing well. But I mean, rightfully, I think he should have got a game at North. I mean, he spent a fair bit of time on the injury list as well. He is a fantastic set shot. I think there was a time in 2011 where he kicked this unbelievable, I can't remember off the top of my head, this unbelievable amount of goals straight without registering a behind. He's a dead eye. I remember a couple of years ago, played in a VFL Grand Final and single-handedly won it for North Ballarat.
He kicked 100 goals there one year.
Yeah.
I think the
That's
good
pretty
thing
much it.
that Richmond have done here as well is that they have addressed the fact that they don't have a lot of depth as in those small to medium forwards. It's only going to take 1 or 2 injuries for that to be very much exposed. So bringing Edwards in for effectively nothing. I mean, King, Nahas, those kinds of guys. Edwards now comes in and... Oh, sorry. Yeah, Edwards comes in. There's Titch Edwards, and now there's Aaron Edwards. Comes in and can play that role.
Yeah, agreed. I think we'll cut to another one of our interviews that we've got, last one of 3. Spencer White from the Western Jets, very promising key forward prospect who has bolstered up the draft rankings in the last couple of months. So his interview.
What are your goals as an AFL player next year?
Well, at this stage, it's just to try and get on the list. But I suppose if you did that, you'd be wanting to sort of have a really good pre-season and hopefully get a game in first year.
Is there a specific player that you model your game off at the moment?
I don't really model my game off anyone. I've just sort of been working on my own strengths and weaknesses.
What would you say is your biggest inspiration as a player?
Probably
When did you first realise that you could play AFL at that sort of level?
I suppose coming into Western Jets as a 16-year-old, you start taking football a bit more seriously, but you don't really think, I can make AFL. But maybe, I guess, as a bottom major for TSC Cup, you thought, you got a chance here. Let's really have a crack.
And just for good measure, what AFL team do you support?
Essendon.
Oh, you poor man.
Well, my dad went for Hawthorn, and so he dressed me up in Hawthorn gear when I was younger, and he thought, yeah, I'll go for Hawks, and then when Essendon won the 2000 premiership, I just jumped on the bandwagon. So I think I really should be going for Hawthorn, but...
Oh, good effort.
Look, you're not necessarily a player that's been touted as an early pick at this stage, but you've bolted in the last couple of months. Do you feel this is an expectation to perform once you've been drafted?
I think regardless which pick you are, you have an expectation. You're, one of the few that have been picked from the country, so there's no excuse, I guess, whether you're a high or low pick. And I think sometimes a lower pick can have less pressure and maybe even perform a little bit better.
And you weren't originally invited to the draft combine, but received a late call-up and registered some pretty impressive results, especially in the more physical categories. And you also missed out on a spot on the Vic Metro squad as well. What's it like to all of a sudden just be on the radar and have a lot of attention around you?
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing to miss out on Metro and also the combine. I guess that was sort of some of the setbacks you had to deal with along your journey. But I guess attention's good, but it doesn't really mean much. So many people have a bit of attention but still don't get drafted, so you sort of have to be realistic about it.
Now, by your own admission, you were struggling early on in the TAC Cup season, but you really turned that form around at the right time. Is there anything you can pinpoint as to why your form turned around in the back end of the year?
Probably a few things. I had asthma, which I knew I had early in the year, but it was we were on the right medication, so got that improved, and fitness and stuff like that improved a lot. That along with a lot of extras on and off away from training, and started seeing a sports psychologist, so just a few little extra things that helped out.
Back on Bound for Glory now. Back to North Melbourne's forwards. Cameron Pedersen got what he wanted. He got his trade to Melbourne at the cost of Jordan Gisberts and a swap of late picks, which I think we can fairly well pass off. But Jordan Gisberts, for Cam Pedersen, what do we make of that?
Well, Gisberts came to Melbourne in that trade with Brock McLean. Thank you, Melbourne.
He was.
Pick 11 he was. And that's as Paige touched on before, they lost a lot of these kids from yesteryear that by now were meant to be sort of leading the team in a way. So it's a big loss, really, because it sort of caps off that we've got another guy that's left. But Pedersen's a pretty good acquisition for them.
With Martin gone as well, which we'll touch on in a little bit, it fills another role, a depth-rucking role. Can play forward, can play back.
I like him as a backman. I think now that Rivers is gone as well, his ability to play as a
Melbourne's
backman
got a lot of
too.
key defenders, though. That's the thing.
And just on Gisberts, as a D's fan, what do you think is the reason Gisberts stagnated? Because there's a couple of games that he played early on that he was showing signs of potentially becoming a really good player.
I'd say both injury and worth ethic. I don't think he fit into the Neil game plan, what was demanded of him, and also struggled with an ankle and broke his jaw late in the year, as well as Jack Viney, both of them in the same game, which is quite unfortunate for Melbourne. But I'd say that are the two reasons why he was gone, and I think a coach like Brad Scott will do very well with him, can demand a lot of him and get a lot out of him as well. The next trade was Matt Spanger.
Third time lucky for Matt.
For a six-pick upgrade,
lucky.
that pretty much says what his value is to Hawthorn.
Well, do you think that he comes straight into Hawthorn's backline? I mean, they were saying that he comes in as a good defender, but he's been struggling for...
This is a team that's Hawthorn.
Box Hill third tall.
They've just brought in bloody Brian Lake.
Just for the sake.
And they think Matt Spanger's going to get a start-up gig. Bloody joking.
I feel sorry for him though.
It's a joke.
Each one of the three clubs, each one is a fringe player.
It's ridiculous.
Well, that's
What
put a
was his
stanger in the
upgrade?
works.
Was it 77 to 66? Or 72
to 66.
Excuse me.
That is an
That
insult.
says it all. That you're there to upgrade 6 picks in the could not be stuffed area of the draft. That's funny. That's a running joke. That is.
Hawthorn with another trade, getting rid of Stephen Gillum for a swap of later picks and Jed Anderson, a Northern
That's a
Territory.
great
That is a
acquisition.
huge acquisition.
He's been Northern Territory's best player this entire championships, and just for the people who play Supercoach, he actually averaged 120 Supercoach points a game this year. So he
get
has
your teams for next year.
Yeah, have a look at him next year for sure.
But as a halfback, midfielder, short top, you think that's a long-term replacement for Brett Guerrero?
Oh, has to
I
be.
would say.
Has to be.
I think that's what they're eyeing off. And then there was Stefan Martin as well for
Fun.
the Stefan Martin experience.
The
Picks,
The Spider Monkey.
The Spider Monkey.
Check out
Spider-Man.
his racking style at Brisbane. Love it.
for picks 53 and 73. I think
Why? Why? I mean, Melbourne are throwing him out the door.
it's a fire sale at Melbourne.
Basically,
Okay,
yeah.
Here's Cal Morton, Jordan Gisberts, and Stefan
Take 'em all.
Martin. Take
Take 'em all.
please.
Take what we have left.
Is there anyone else on the side steps of Amy Park there? You haven't thrown anyone else out at the moment?
Hopefully Tim Harrington. Swap of later picks between Collingwood and North Melbourne. Collingwood giving up their pick 39 for North's 42 and 48. Was that?
Nah, other way around.
Other way around?
42,
Yeah.
48 for 39.
Useless.
Interesting, because that's only a 3-pick upgrade and then getting an extra third rounder on top of
I
that.
think Derek Hine as well said that they weren't going to use those picks either. They're going to go in with 4 picks in the draft, and that's really about it for them. So they've just improved their draft.
Fair enough. And another interesting one, Trent Dennis-Lane improving the depth of St Kilda's small forwards. I don't think that was really necessary. Costing them their third-round pick, which was pick 47.
Dennis Lane's a good footballer as well, so I think he'll be able to get a spot. But as you mentioned, there's that number of small forwards. I don't understand why they're loading up unless they have intentions of playing one of those small forwards as a midfielder. I mean, Milne will always play forward. And I think Milne and Sard are the two that you'd always have playing forward so long as they're there. So I'm sure one of the other guys will push down the field a little bit.
You'd think one of Malera or Schneider does.
Schneider
Malera
does.
or
I think
Dennis-Lane will push into the
Malera
midfield.
would be, of those, he'd be the one to push to a wing or a flank.
Yeah, he looked capable of it. And Jamie Cripps as well on the way out. Got his move to West Coast for pick 41 and a swap of third rounders as well.
Probably not the result that St Kilda would have actually
They would
liked.
have wanted Mitch Brown in that
No,
trade.
exactly.
No, Cripps is a good footballer. It's another good get.
Well, it was either that or really, Cripps was going to walk to the draft and West Coast were going to pick him up there anyway. So really, they've gotten something in return for him. It's not much, but it's serviceable.
Yeah, it's enough. And Mitch Brown didn't get picked up in the trade period. West Coast just not willing to let him go. The offer was the latest one, pick 25 and Jamie Cripps, who, as we said, just did get to West Coast.
Obviously they're trying to retain that key player, but the key position
Is he
player...
a key player, though?
A key position player.
He doesn't play.
Yeah, well,
He's
so
not.
that's the
he's
thing.
not,
Is, I
he-
mean, there's a
he
guy
can't
that
be that key
there's a
to
guy
the
that
side
has-
when you're not playing.
He's come out and he's stated publicly that he doesn't want to be there and he wants to go, and yet the club won't let go of him. I mean, as soon as his contract's done, he's going to leave anyway, so you might as well... I mean, Cripps in 25 was a steal. They're going to lose him for nothing at the end of the day.
The thing about Mitch Brown is he isn't even that good.
No, he's not. 25 and Cripps. I was laughing when I heard about
25
that.
is overs for him.
If I think he was out of contract, they definitely would have moved him on to get something from him. But seeing as though he's still got a year remaining, they're just like, why not keep him as depth?
But it's just keeping him as depth and asking that much from
in
there.
the
I
In
think this is
scheme
going
of
to
things.
really come back and hurt West Coast in the long run. I mean, it's really now do or die for them. They either play him and give him that opportunity to come into the West Coast senior side and play some consistent football. Otherwise, if he doesn't get the opportunity that he wants, that St Kilda have promised him, he will leave next year and walk out on the club if they can't orchestrate something for him.
Yeah, pretty much. If they value him that highly, he will get a game next year. It'll be interesting to wait and see. Other players that didn't get to destinations they were looking for. Josh Toy was one. He wanted to leave Gold Coast, didn't really get that. You wonder what's going to happen to him now, whether he signs another contract at Gold Coast or whether he walks out on the club, nominates for the draft. I think Hawthorn offered their second rounder for him, which was interesting because he's got the heart condition that does limit his endurance capabilities. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to him.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about that situation. It's pretty straightforward, I guess.
Any other players that...
I've got Tom Gillies from
Tom Gillies has been delisted, been told
Yep.
he's been delisted at least. So,
Well, who do you think's going to actually go for him now that he's going to nominate for the draft? Is there a certain team
St
you
Kilda.
think that's going to...
rookie,
Oh,
I reckon.
He'll definitely get picked up wherever he goes. But
he'll definitely be playing
Yeah.
next year.
just a matter of where.
Justin Sherman as well.
He
That'll be...
mutual agreement.
Hot
to walk
property.
out.
I don't know, maybe the
Oh, probably.
Coburg twos would probably suit him at this stage.
Oh,
Any others?
I think that's about it off the top of my
And
head, at
what's
least.
the big one?
Oh.
Tippett.
Oh, yeah, of course, the
Can't
Tippett
forget him.
situation. Yeah, no, look...
Interesting situation.
It's a ridiculous, hilarious situation. I mean, it's really a biting the hand that feeds, and then you bit too hard, and now you look like a moron, and you're not going to be able to play footy situation. Those ones, those regular ones.
No.
The AFL was really interesting. They declared yesterday that Tippett was able to be traded, and then came in about mid-morning and took him straight off the table while the investigations were ongoing in regards to the cap and Adelaide. But I mean, if he goes to the pre-season draft, GWS will obviously have the first pick. They're not really interested. Gold Coast and Brisbane said that they would have a look, is what's been reported. But does he still go to Sydney?
I think.
I doubt it.
Well,
I mean, GWS won't let him
how
go.
does that work?
God,
Does he
no.
nominate for national draft, pre-season draft? What?
Well, I think if he's deregistered,
It's the national
he has
draft
to go
as well.
through the national draft.
GWS will get him. I mean, I'm certain they won't pass up Kurt Tippett for free.
And even if he puts like a price in his head, regardless,
It
they're
doesn't
gonna
matter.
pay
You
for
still
him. They
bloody
could- they
take
could pay
him.
a million.
Take him.
They just front end his
Billions.
contract straight
He'll be able
away.
to go to Sydney. It'll just be the shit Sydney.
And with contracts like Callan Wars and Tom Scully's front-ended, they'd have the room for him too.
It would be a big get. I mean, then they'd have Patton and then
Cameron,
Jeremy Cameron,
yeah.
who I rate very highly as an 18-year-old. And then this senior forward that can come into the team and have an it'll be interesting to see how he goes being the number one forward, however, without Taylor Walker.
But hypothetically, if he did go to the draft, do you think GWS would pick him up with one of their first three picks?
Oh, yeah.
I would have thought so.
Guaranteed.
Oh, definitely.
Would you rather choose a certain performer who's already senior
I think
player
it
that's played in
looms.
finals? Or?
I think it looms as Kurt Tippett versus Brodie Grundy.
Yeah,
Brodie
Yeah, that's a
Grundy-
very good point.
I mean,
I
GWS have
think
got enough. They've got enough of those young kids. I think,
Grundy is a
huge.
huge talent, but I can't see them passing on Tippett. If they have Giles and Tippett as their ruck and then their forward relief ruck type players, sets up a great key
Do you
position
think
still.
even though that might stunt the development of either Patton or Cameron with a big bodied?
I think it'll help, really. I mean, both Patton and Cameron haven't got anybody to learn off. They're both learning off each other, really. And reality is they're both 18, 19-year-olds.
There's
And
pros and cons.
that's it.
And they can swing Tippett into the ruck as well. I mean,
That's it.
He's versatile in that sense.
And even Patton has that facet to his game. I think Cameron's a bona fide forward, however it goes. But it'll be interesting to see the way the Tippett situation pans out. And
Well, if it's not GWS, where else?
Oh, Gold Coast. They haven't got anybody else.
Gold Coast.
Well, if
Gold
you-
Coast have pick 13.
Oh,
What about the doggies at pick 5 and 6? Well, do you think the
I
doggies would
reckon
have a
doggies.
look? I mean, they're in
Oh,
the
God,
they
yeah.
are
God,
they are
yes.
so in the hunt
If they-
for a forward, and if
I'll tell you what.
Tippett's
that'd be
available at
perfect.
pick 5,
If Tippett goes if he goes to the Bulldogs and the Bulldogs pass it on him, what will I do? I'm gonna eat a shoe.
and I'm going
Eat
to
a
film
shoe.
it and we'll upload
Eat a
that.
shoe.
Yeah.
That's a commitment.
Peter's shoe.
Peter's shoe. Peter Williams,
He
our
wears the best shoes.
he has a very
We
very
apologise,
interesting
Pete.
looking sneakers
So many holes.
with many
More
a
holes
hole.
than not.
Yeah, many a holes than Port Adelaide's list.
Yeah, but
Resembling a piece of Swiss cheese, I guess.
No, get new shoes, Peter. That's the line we're trying to get out. Anyway, moving on from Peter's shoes. I think that's just about it,
I
really.
think
There's
that's
not a whole
pretty much
lot
it.
more to talk about. We've been babbling for an hour, which is about half hour longer than we planned this show to go.
So the first podcast of 2, we'll do one on the draft
Yes,
as well.
we'll be doing another special podcast. I mean, our season's technically over, but we're doing another special podcast in a couple of weeks.
Just
with
because we can.
just because we can and we like annoying you people. We'll have a few more upcoming draftees to interview as well. It'll all be happening.
Jakey
Stringer. I can't remember who the other ones.
Lockie
Plowman and Ollie Wines.
Wines.
Done. There you go.
Beautiful.
So yes, this has been Bound for Glory. Thank you very much for joining us for the first time, Paige.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Yeah. No worries. No stress. It's been, and you, Ethan, and Damon.
Yeah.
It's been Bound for Glory. I'm not sure when our next show will be. It'll be before the national draft, so keep an eye out for us and take care.
I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?